Welcome back. So today we're inside and we're processing elderberries. These are black European elderberries. You can see, I'll show you what some of them look like with the stem. They're mostly stem. So if you've gone to your natural food store and you've looked for elderberry syrup and you've wondered why it's like $20 for a tiny little thing, this is why. Because the processing is a bit tedious. It's mostly stem, and the stems are toxic. They've got I forget exactly what the chemical is in there, but you don't want to eat them because you'll have a bad day, stomach aches and whatnot. And then once you get past that, you're left with the fruit, but the fruit also has seeds in the middle of it. I think it's just one giant seed. I could be wrong about that. But, so, yeah, so, you know, your yield at the end of this is not all that much. But so why would we go through this whole process, right? It's super tedious to pick these things. It's a pain to process them. You don't get much yield out of them. So what's the point? The point is that they're a super useful plant. And it's really odd that if you look on the NIH website, the NIH is the government website for clinical trials. It's the National Institute of Health, I believe is what it stands for. There are some clinical trials in there that show that elderberries can cut the length of the flu in half. And that's incredible. They have some kind of antiviral property in them. And just basically drinking the concentrated syrup of elderberry, European specifically, but I think blue elders might have the same properties. They can cut your duration of flu in half. So that's pretty wild, right? And they also make a really good syrup that goes on top of pancakes. So it's win-win, right? You know, you're eating your medicine, and your medicine is helping you out. So I'm going to go through and continue processing these things. I've got, I think, 2 more boxes about this big, and then there's quite a bit more outside. And it's pretty exciting because I've planted, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about maybe 6 or 7 bushes, and this is the most elderberries I've ever had. Usually I'll just get like a, tiny little thimble's worth, and I'll make a little drop of syrup and put it on a pancake and go, wow, this tastes great. So much effort. Yeah, but they taste good. They kind of have like that. If you've ever had black currants, they taste very similar. Yeah, they that dark flavor. It's not quite. They don't quite have the same. It's not quite black currant, but it's similar enough that if you've had that, you'll know what the flavor is. So they take a lot of sugar because they're pretty sour. But once you can get rid of you can get rid of that component with some sugar. And it's also important to cook these before you eat them, because I think the chemical that gives you like a stomach ache or worse is, well, concentrated in the stems. There's a little bit in the fruit, and I think there's some in the seeds, and there's, I think, quite a lot in the stems. Like, not these stems, but I mean like the main hollow stems that you see on the bush. And I've read reports that accidental poisonings and accidental death among children can be attributed to them taking the stems, which are hollow in the middle, and using them as kind of like a blow dart device. So if you've got elderberries around you, just be careful. Don't let your kids chew on them. Don't let your dog chew on them, because my dog has been interested in them before. Don't chew on them. Don't do anything like that. Don't eat the leaves. All that stuff is toxic. But the berries, super good for you. So I'll take you through the rest of this jam making process. And yeah, we're going to make some pancakes afterwards too. It's going to be good. Okay, slightly different method for these. These are blue elderberries, as you can see, very nice blue. the method I'm going to use to strip these off the branches is I threw them in the chest freezer. So let's see what they do. I read that you can just kind of like, oh yeah, look at that. They're just coming it off. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'd say it works. Pretty neat. I don't know which method I'll use, if it's just, you know, strip them while they're fresh or freeze them, but either way, you got to take them all off the stems, and you don't want any of these little stems in there, because those are not good eats. Okay, so now that I've had a chance to check this out and try this method, I like it, especially for the blue elderberry. And oh, there's a leaf. The particular reason why I like it for the blue elderberry is because the skins on these are really thin, and last year when I tried to strip these off the branch, they just squished. So that was unfortunate, and I ended up just throwing them in the dehydrator because I thought that would be the easiest way to process them. But you know, that looks pretty good. There's still a lot of sticks in here that I need to clean up. So I think what I'm going to do is chuck it back in the chest freezer and let it cool down again, get frozen, and I'll go through them again and try to pick out all the little sticks. So all in all, I think for blue elderberries, this is pretty good. The black ones seem to have a bit of a thicker skin, and that might be just because they've been bred for that. It's totally possible. I mean, people in Europe have been growing black elderberries for a long time. So anyway, we'll freeze these again and then move on to the next step. Okay, we're back. So I've weighed out about 3.5 pounds, about 1,500 grams of berries. These were all frozen, and threw them in a pot, put about 1 cup of water in there, and we're going to heat them up. I found a recipe online to make, we're going to do a jelly today, and it should be pretty easy, so let's see what happens. Okay, so the next step, once these get going, is to take a potato masher, squish them up a little bit. What we're trying to do is squeeze the juice out, but not smash the seeds inside that are going to give you a tummy ache. So squish these up, and then after that, we're going to let them simmer for about 10 minutes. Okay, we're getting close to the point where they're almost at a simmer. Squished them a bunch, although a lot of them still aren't very squished, but they have released quite a lot of juice, so this is looking good. Okay, we've made it to boiling, so I'm going to turn it down now, let it simmer, and I'm not sure if I'm going to put the lid on it. It looks like it looks like the bubbles are stacking on top of each other like that, so I may just leave the lid off. Don't want it to explode all over the stovetop here. So I'm just going to let this go for 10 minutes, and then we'll work on straining it. Alright, while this is simmering, I'd like to talk about the other things we're using here today. Weck jars. These are half-liter. I think they're tulip jars. And the reason I use those instead of like ball or cur is because I like that the rubber seals are reusable, and I've probably used these since, I don't know, 2009. So gotten a lot of uses out of them. And then the other thing we're using today is Pomona's pectin. So this is a citrus pectin. It's a low sugar, so it enables you to use a low amount of sugar, but I think with elderberries in particular, they're going to need a lot of sugar because they're very, I guess the right word would be sour for them. So the deal is we're going to finish these simmering, and then I'm going to put a fine strainer in here, I'm gonna pour all the berries into this pot. I'll put a cloth over it and just let it sit for an hour. While that's going, I will take the seals off of these, put them in a small pot of water and get them boiling, and then cover that and leave them. And then I'm going to get a large pot of water going for the water bath canning process itself, but that'll be a little bit later. It's been 10 minutes and these are simmering quite nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do is run it through a sieve, and this is the tightest sieve that I can find, so hopefully it's good. If not, I may have to stack up some cheesecloth and then run it through again. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna try to hold the camera and do a few of these, and then just pour the rest in off camera. Alright, let's see. It looks like it might be good. I don't see any seeds in there. Alright, so this looks good. I'll pour the rest in and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so next step is, according to Pomona's pectin recipe, we need to measure out how much juice we have. So I poured this into Pyrex, and it's exactly 4 cups. Oops, easier to see it this way. Yep, so I'm going to pour this back in, and we're good to go. So just note to people at home that 1,500 grams, or about 3.5 pounds of elderberries equals about 4 cups of juice. So on top of this, we're going to add a 1/4 cup of lemon, and then we're going to stir in anywhere between 3/4 cup and 2 cups of sugar, depending on how sweet it is. I'm thinking we're probably going to have to go more on the 2 cup side. Okay, so the procedure with Pomona's pectin is that it needs 4 teaspoons of pectin, and we stir it into the sugar. This is 2 cups of sugar. And then on top of that, in our juice, we're going to stir in 4 teaspoons of pre-made calcium water. And we're going to also add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, and then bring this all to a boil. And once it's boiling, we're going to stir in the sugar. That should get everything to set, and then we can put them in the wet jars. Okay, so now that this is going to a good solid boil, I'm going to stir in the sugar gently and then set a timer for 1 minute while stirring it up so that it doesn't gel in chunks. For a minute. And we're going to take it off the heat. Keep it going for a few more seconds. Okay, that's it. We can ladle it into jars now. Okay, next step is ladling these into the jars. I think this is the first time I've made jelly. I don't think I've ever made this before. It looks pretty good. Hopefully it sets.
Personally, I'm excited for jelly instead of jam. Because the elderberry seeds are quite a pain.
And then over here I've got the rings in the boiling water. There's one. These wet jars are great. We've been using them over and over again since like 2010, maybe 2009. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep in mind with these jars that they're from Europe, so they use the metric system. These are half-liter jars. So if you're looking online at recipes that are meant for Americans, this ball jar, you're gonna have to do some adjustments. Okay, so this situation happens pretty often, just because we're making a guess about how many jars we need. Sometimes we end up with jars that are kind of like half full. It may end up floating, and if it does float, it'll flip over, and then that won't work. So
Then that jar is ruined.
yeah, so when we put it in the water bath like this, and it looks like it's going to float, I'll just stick it in the refrigerator because that'll be the one we use up first. So I'm going to water bath can these things for 10 minutes. Yeah, this is not very full. I think it's going to float. So these will get canned for 10 minutes, and then after that, it should be good to go for at least a year. We've had some stay good in the pantry for like 3 years. Not that I recommend anybody doing that. This is almost boiling. I'm going to put them in there now, and we'll just let them come up to a boil. And once this is completely boiling, that's when we'll start the timer for 10 minutes. Okay, let's see what happens with this last one. Nope. Okay.
It's a floater.
We need to get this out of here.
Ah! This is not how you're supposed to use this thing.
Yeah, see, this is exactly what you don't want to do. This is a great example. Dang it.
Ah! Don't burn yourself.
Okay, so that one goes in the fridge.
Now our water is
It's good.
purple.
Wow, now I can't tell where anything is. This usually goes well. And I tried to do something fun for the camera, and this is what happens. Okay, so this looks looks like it's pretty close. I'll start the timer and see you in 10 minutes. Okay, and there you have it. Mishaps aside, that was a mistake. I usually don't try doing stuff like that with the half full jars, but I figured, you know, what the heck, I don't know. So if they are only, you know, less than half full, just throw them in the fridge because they're just gonna float. And then when they're upside down like that, the juice is on the bottom, the air is on the top, and the air wants to expand as it's warming up, so it pushes the juice out the bottom. Yeah, well, I mean, you can see what happened. Okay, so there's our elderberry jelly. We have to let these cool down. And then once they cool down, the tab should, instead of pointing out, point down. And then once it's pointing down, that means the seal is good. I was checking on these just a second ago, and they look like they're sealing pretty well. So that's it. Elderberry jam, it's good for you. It reduces the length of the flu. You can look that up at the NIH. There's studies talking about it. And yeah, tastes great too. Goes good on pancakes. So enjoy, have fun making it yourself.